Good morning. This is the EPP Group press conference. The Parliament is starting to scrutinize European Commission's funding of the NGOs within the Budgetary Control Committee. Tomorrow, the Scrutiny Working Group is going to hold its first meeting. And to give you insights about what is happening there, I have with me Dirk Gotink, who is the EPP Group spokesman in the Parliament's NGO Scrutiny Working Group. Dirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marta. Good morning, everyone. Yes, so tomorrow we start, and because it has been several months that there was a bit of a break, a silence, I thought it was a good moment to maybe update some of you, because I know that if I have to talk to all of you individually, also maybe online, then it takes a lot more time. So where are we? The decision was made in a Conference of Presidents to do the Scrutiny Working Group. It was then challenged in the Cont Committee and reconfirmed in the Cont Committee with a majority. So anyone suggesting that this is undemocratic is either I have a different understanding from how democracy works, or they should explain themselves a bit more in detail. What we first wanted to do was to solve the problem that everyone in this debate is talking about different things. Because as you know, the Commission has, over the course of several years, published on occasion, or at least shared on occasion, documents with members or some members of the Budgetary Control Committee. Now, even I didn't have access to all the documents that were already shared in the past. So the first thing we wanted to do, and which is what we asked also the Commission, was share with us all the contracts that were already shared in the past with members of the Cont Committee, plus the contracts that are part of the internal screening exercise. You know that the Commission did itself, following sort of our questions about this, they did an internal screening, and they came up with around 50 contracts that do not follow their current guidelines anymore. With the more or less 50 contracts of the past that were published in the past years or shared in the past years, we're around 100 contracts that we have now. So they were shared with us, and we have taken the time in the past months to actually look at those contracts. A lot of them we already knew, but a lot of them were also new. So the internal screening exercise is about 50 or 47 contracts. It's about 13 million euros, so $500,000 per contract, more or less. But let us just first start with what is happening now with this working group. So tomorrow we focus on that topic, obviously, because what comes out of this internal screening is also very much confirms the concerns that we had in the past, which everyone was holding a piece of the puzzle, but now clearly and also quite undeniably, there seems to be a very normalized way of working, and that is that the Commission gives money to third parties to lobby the same Commission, and to lobby the Parliament, and to lobby the institutions. And I think there are serious questions we can ask about that, about how that functions then in the separation of powers, but also would that at all help to rebuild trust in the functioning of the European Union, which is something many, many citizens back home are quite worried about. So tomorrow we will focus on the issue of a lot of NGOs and the climate and environment field, but we have 6 months now to do our work. So let's say the next meeting will be in January, and then we have until before the summer to sort of close off our work. We will always be limited, of course, in what we can do, because one contract can be hundreds of pages. So you can imagine actually going through one. I mean, if you're talking about EU as champion of bureaucracy, look at a contract, and you will see what that actually means, because they're extremely complex, extremely legal, a lot of legal language and if already on the inside it is that complicated, then you can imagine on the outside how difficult it is. Which also brings me to the point, I have found nothing in these documents that would not be possible for journalists to read. I have found nothing of information that would be so sensitive for the media to have access to it. I really don't understand why these documents are simply not published in their entirety. Anonymized, of course, take out the sensitive personal information, but there is simply no reason in my view. And actually, thank God, some NGOs went to court in the past decade, and they went to the European Court of Justice. And there's all kinds of precedent. There were rulings by the Commission, by the European Court of Justice, based on cases that NGOs brought to the court, that basically indicate that these kind of documents, to as much as possible, should be published by the Commission. So I'm telling this in internal meetings with them. I'm telling that now these documents should be published so that everyone simply can look at it for themselves. Because even now they are shared with us on a confidential basis. I can only open the documents on one single computer in my office, and after half an hour the thing turns off if you don't move the mouse. Yeah? And then you have to log in again, and then it's all very complicated. So, you know, all the contracts that we're talking about here, there is direct lobbying involved, direct advocacy involved. You can see also a system where actually civil society and NGOs in the climate environment world have become a very important player in the governance simply of EU policy, because they monitor implementation. They are in all the stakeholder groups of the Commission. They are simply trusted partners of the Commission. And that's okay. I mean, that's okay, you know, that's fine. Just we need to have more visibility on that, especially if at the same time the Commission is giving these organizations money to influence the same Commission, I would think then other DGs, and even the European Parliament. So in that sense, a lot of this is about transparency and accountability. Now, tomorrow we will talk about DG Envy, DG Klima, and DG Budge, and the current boss of CINEA. A significant part of the contracts that we got from the internal screening passed through CINEA. They have a significant role to play because they manage a lot of the money that is being put to third parties. So I'm happy they're coming. And I mean, I can talk about this for hours. But maybe you have some questions and we can simply take it from there.
Just before I give you the floor, I want to let you know this is the briefing which takes place also online. We have over 20 people connected online. There is also interpretation into French, Italian, Spanish, Dutch, German. If I'm missing something, Madalena, that's it. So now the floor is yours. So who has the question? Tommaso.
Good morning, Tommaso Gallavotti in Kronos Italy. It's just a curiosity. Is this way of working of the Commission, I mean, with the NGOs, still ongoing, or is it a thing of the past? Thanks.
Well, the internal screening was about 2024. So they looked at active contracts. Most of the contracts are one-year contracts, but you also have multi-year framework contracts. Basically, what we're talking here are grants to third parties, meaning they're not connected to a specific project. They pay the rent with it, they pay the salaries with it, they pay the overhead, basically. And then what is then described in the contract is what they're going to do with the money. So in that sense, it is very much depending on the year. The new guidelines you are aware of. I understand from the Commission that every single DG has been confronted with this new reality and is also responsible to implement this new reality in their DGs. So if it says no advocacy, then I would expect no advocacy in the current contracts. But let's be clear, all this is legal. So the financial regulation, everything that has to do with this, is that the legislators have created a system in which this is also simply very possible. And I think it has evolved into a highly complex and widespread system. Because I'm not only restricting, for me, and other entities is a very important part of it as well. So yes, this started with NGOs, a lot around climate and environment. But I think the way basically Brussels ticks is very much around this ecosystem of talking about policy. So I'm also looking at think tanks. I'm also looking at consultancies. I mean, for me, it's a broader picture than simply only the NGOs.
We'll take the two questions together now, back row and over there.
Good morning, Alexander Bakker, Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf. Is Mr. Timmermans coming tomorrow?
I understand the Secretariat has invited him, so you know how that goes. They ask us who we would like to invite, and then we say that, and then the chair of the and the Secretariat then make that happen. Mr. Sinkevicius was invited, and he declined because of agenda problems. Mr. Timmermans, I understand, has not given any answer, and that's a pity. I think, of course, I totally understand the election situation in the Netherlands, but you know what? I think a lot of people around Europe, they somehow feel Brussels is far away, and Strasbourg is far away, and when it is about decisions that are taken and political accountability, then they want the system to work. They want people to sort of answer to questions that are raised. And what has, in the last mandate, I think we have seen a production of legislation and of laws that we are still today talking every day about. How the hell are we going to do this? Yes? And we're even changing laws that we adopted in the last mandate before they're even implemented here. So I think we can legitimately ask questions about what has happened in the past. And somehow what we see in the contracts, it falls under the remit of these people that I mentioned. You know, in the Netherlands, ministerial responsibility, it goes quite far. Even stuff that ministers cannot be aware of, they can be called to Parliament for that. So I think Europe could use a bit of that here in Brussels, a bit of more political accountability, and not only the civil servants and the technocrats that are answering our questions, because people need to know that that the EU is run by politicians and not by technocrats, and that's a big difference. And we need the technocrats, but we also need people that take political responsibility for the decisions we're taking here.
Emmanuel Beretta from Le Point. To be clear, do you find infringements in the contracts?
Infringements as in of EU law? At the moment, that's not clear yet. That's not clear yet. Because what I said, the general framework is very permitting of this. For example, the life regulation is extremely broad. And it depends very much on the type of activity. But lobbying itself is not against EU law. And this is something, that's why also the work we do now will have to feed into the new MFF and the revisions, because every sectoral legislation will be changed in the coming years. Even the financial regulation will be looked at. And there we can we can more clearly define sort of the boundaries of what we think is acceptable and what is not.
Are there more questions in the room?
Yes, you spoke about the climate ONG. There are another thematic in this affair, and which one?
Yes, exactly. So this time we talk about climate environment. We're looking at migration. We're looking at trade, because also we found many of you will know that the Commission also paid for campaigns against Mercosur. That was not the only contract that was discussing Mercosur, but there's also, and that's I didn't mention yet up to now, maybe it's good to simply add, we found a smaller group of contracts that deals with litigation. It is about starting court cases, mostly against member states. And I would say, you know, the Commission has the possibility to start infringements against member states. If they don't comply with EU law, you start an infringement. But here it seems that at the least they are aware, and in the worst case, they're encouraging it, of third parties that they are financing, because these structures are always also connected to monitoring of implementation of EU law. I think it would be very, very bad for the Commission if they would be paying for legal cases against member states. In that sense, that is a total no-go in my view for me, but I think also as a parliament, the separation of powers should be really clarified, because they have all the tools they need to go to court. Yeah? If they can go to court to any member state if they have a case, and they don't need third parties for that. But again, this was not all the contracts that we're talking about. It was a smaller group, but it was definitely also a significant portion of it. Now, other topics that we can think of, I mentioned already consultancies, think tanks. I want to see how those what are the financial relations between the Commission and these third parties? Because, you know, there's also, if you know how the sausage is made in Brussels, you also know that you need to get people talking about a topic. And how do you get people talking about a topic? You ask for a report. Yeah? And if many people then start talking about a topic, then all of a sudden you get an initiative report here in the Parliament. And then that's a signal to the European Commission to start doing something with it. Something, yeah? Even if you don't have competence. And that's also an important angle for me, at least, is how this money is then used to start a debate on a topic that is not clearly an EU competence, but simply is something Europe would like to get into. I think we have to do less, and we need to do the stuff that we need to do it better. So we don't need new topics. We have the competence clarified in the treaties, and we shouldn't be trying to expand them via the back door or via any kind of lobbying activities from anyone.
We have time for one or two last questions. I would just like to remind the journalists to introduce themselves and tell us which media they work for when they take the floor. Are there more questions in the room? No, but I'm looking if there are questions online. I see there is one question. Arthur, you have the floor.
Me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Good. The transparency report on which the probe is based calls for the defunding of NGOs which have been linked to inciting terrorism, hate speech, supporting or glorifying violence, political and religious extremism, as well as spreading disinformation. I was wondering if you would be looking at NGOs in the Israel-Palestine area, especially in the context of the group NGO Monitor, which was cited in the original version of Marcus Piper's report, and whose director wrote an op-ed last week calling for Amnesty International in particular, which receives money from the EU, to be defunded.
Arthur, do you mind telling us which media do you work for?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm writing a story. I'm a freelance journalist, but I'm writing a story about this for Drop Site News.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Listen, I mean, I know that I have heard of it before, but it's not part of our current work stream to look at those issues. But what I said, we haven't filled up all the meetings yet until the end of before summer, basically, because we have 6 months to finish this work. I said it already. But also any sort of input that we get, we will follow up on. Also bear in mind that in order for us to get access to information, it always takes time. So now we are already working on the information requests, so the contracts that we want to see from the Commission on the topics that will be dealt with in the new year. So in that sense, there is an issue of time lag if we have an idea to work about on something. But anything that comes into my inbox, and that's also an appeal to other journalists, because I know that some journalists have been also working on this quite a lot. Our door is open, just as our door is open to any group in this Parliament who is willing to look at how the Commission is using taxpayers' money.
And if there are no further questions, okay, one last question.
Je vais la poser en français, tant que tout le monde mette son oreiller.
I'll ask my question in French, just give you all time to put your headphones on. But, Dirk, if I understand you correctly, and to recap, the Commission is using these NGOs to launch debates and to lobby other institutions, including the Parliament, and this has been going on for many years now. So how can the EPP therefore have confidence in the von der Leyen Commission in the light of these revelations?
The Commission is an extremely decentralized organization. These DGs, they are basically autonomous planets. Look at the solar system, you see the planets, and they are different DGs. And I discovered that it is really like that. They can do whatever they want. That's not true, I take that back. But they have a lot of margin of maneuver to implement simply the political priorities from a commissioner and from the Commission president. And like I said, if it is not even possible to establish an accountability mechanism for one DG to a single commissioner, how does the rest of the accountability system work? So I would not go as far as you in the conclusions. I mean, what you mentioned in terms of the factual, what they do is true, and especially in the area of related to all the Green Deal work. This has been a very significant part of the work. But I would not enlarge that to the entire college. That's not what I'm here for.
And with that, we are ending this press conference. I would like to thank you all for participating and see you next time.